Hey, what's up? Ken from Palm Beach Dyno here. On my way to work this morning, and decided I'm going to try and do some more videos. I've been slacking. What I'm going to try and do is a combination of things. This one's going to be a commonly asked question, frequently asked question. I get hit up a lot on Facebook, either in comments or direct messages, about specific questions all the time, and the ones that I seem to be answering a lot, I'll go ahead and do a video of. And this one is E85. Should I run Pump E85 or Race E85? Well, you know, just like any other question, it really depends. Let's backtrack a little bit. I've been running the E85 and tuning E85 cars for a really long time. And back in the beginning, there was no Race E85. But when Race E85 first started coming, you know, I didn't really care about it. I didn't really want it. Pump E85 was doing great for us. We had no issues with Pump E85. So if you would have asked me a few years ago, I probably would have told you, you don't need that stuff. It's expensive, blah, blah, blah. But things change. One thing that's changed significantly is the power that people are making on street cars, or even like race cars, you know, that they drive around a little bit, but they take them to the track, you know. Used to be 1,000 real horsepower was a lot, and anybody that has less than 1,000 real horsepower, don't feel bad about this, but it's not a lot anymore in today's day and age, especially as the Coyote keeps getting better and better. We just recently went 927 at 151 on Anthony Ballard's Whipple 2018 Mustang GT with a bone stock motor. That's 1,000 real horsepower roughly, and it's stock, you know. So just like anything else, you know, if you ask me one time, I might give you one answer, and a couple years down the road it may completely change. So this is the answer has changed. Another factor that is a big component, or a big part of this question, is where do you live, and what is the quality of the Pump E85 currently that you can get, because that's a huge factor, right? If you can get, like I'm in South Florida, as everybody knows. Down here we don't have winter blend and all that, and in general it's fairly easy to find gas stations down here that always have good ethanol content. So, you know, in that case, Pump E85 is even a more viable option. But other people that either A, live in areas that do have winter blends, and or just very inconsistent E85 that's all over the place, maybe Pump E85 is not a great option for you. But in general, here's my advice on how to handle it, okay? Well, first off, when we say Race E85, let's talk about what we're exactly talking about, brands and all that. So the two main Race E85s that I use currently are, my favorite one is Ignite Red 114, which is marketed as an E85 replacement. It's closer to E90, but it pretty much is a direct swap. Or C85 from VP. I've also used Sunoco, E85R. I probably use them all at some point. But the two that I use the most are VP C85 and Ignite. People ask, what would I choose? Well, I consider them interchangeable. VP Fuels is a great company. If I use non-ethanol based race fuel, I always use their fuel. But in general, when we're talking about Race E85, I lean more towards the Ignite for a couple reasons. And again, it has to do with location. Where I'm currently at, A, I can get Ignite much easier. B, Ignite is cheaper. And it definitely performs as good as C85, possibly better. The other big factor with Ignite, when we're talking about ethanol fuels over VP, is the owner of Ignite is a big player in the ethanol industry in general, right? So if I'm going to buy an ethanol-based fuel, I'm going to buy it from an ethanol guy. And that's not saying that VP is not as good, because they're obviously a professional race fuel company. They should know what they're doing with that. But if I have to choose, all those factors included, I am going to use Ignite. But I use C85 in cars all the time. Sandra Leslie, who runs NMRA Limited Street, with a Coyote swap Fox body. She runs C85 in that class, and her car is running spectacular. So really, which Race E85 you use is up to you. Now, the next question is, and this is the important point of the whole video, is what makes Race E85 that much better? What's different about it? Okay, so ethanol is ethanol, as far as I know. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, just so you know. I just know about it from using it, just like everybody else, and talking to smarter people than me. But ethanol is ethanol for the most part. So if the fuel comes out to be 85% ethanol, it's got 85% ethanol. So people go, well, what's the difference? What the other 15% is? Well, fairly large difference, right? So 15%, doesn't sound that big, but it's a large portion. Think about it this way: you take regular pump E85 or pump 93 octane, and you put a can of Torco, Boostane, VP Octanium in it. That's much less than 15% of the fuel mixture, yet it greatly improves that 93 octane fuel. Anybody that has used it knows that. It has a couple drawbacks, but in general, it's a great way to do it. So if we can add a little can this big into 10 gallons of fuel or more and make a significant difference, what happens when we take the 15% of E85 fuel and make it better? Well, I mean, that should be obvious. So the difference is, and I tried looking up the numbers on this exactly. I don't have access to the SAE papers or whatever papers are needed to see the actual wording on this. I may look into it a little further, but from what I understand, the 15% of E85 pump gas, the other 15%, the specification for what is allowed to be added to that is very vague. It pretty much just has to be a hydrocarbon. So if you're assuming, okay, well, E85, 85% ethanol and 87%, or excuse me, 15%, like say 87 octane, that might not be too bad, but I don't think that's what the other 15% is, or that's what you're getting, or all the time. You can be getting some very poor fuel there. There's really no way to know. Obviously, there's a specification that only allows them to put certain things in that 15%, but I don't really think it's very good stuff. So, what the Race E85 does is not only ensure that the ethanol that you have is good, but the other 15% is things that are going to improve your performance. And when I say to run Race E85, there's two reasons to run Race E85. A would be to safety factor, right? And in my opinion, that's the main reason to run it, okay? Because horsepower is not an issue anymore, right? I mean, of course, it takes money to make horsepower, but if you want to make X amount of horsepower, for the most part, you can do it if you have the budget. There's no longer like a 1500 roll horsepower street car is possible now. People used to dream about that crap 5-10 years ago, and they were like outlaw level cars driving around on the street, and they barely made 1500. Now you really can have a true 1500 horsepower. So you really have to step back and decide, exactly, what your goals are with the car, of course. So if you want to make a true 1500 horsepower, you're not going to run 1500 horsepower on the street. And you don't want to run 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 a gallon fuel on the street either. So my suggestion on the Race E85 thing is, a true 1,000 real horsepower on the street is a lot of freaking horsepower. In fact, my own personal twin turbo 2011 car, that makes it's made 1,300, and that car's never seen Race E85 yet. It's always been on pump E85, and it made 1,300 horsepower. But I've never had it at 1,300 horsepower. The only time I ever turned it up close to that was at the half mile when I went 191, and it was only at the very end of the track because of traction reasons and all that. So the moral of the story is I would use Race E85, but set the car up for pump E85 and race if you drive it on the street. If it's mostly a track car that you may take out to a cruise in, to a car show, then maybe just run it 100% on Race E85. But like my own personal cars, what I'll do is is I'll set it up for pump E85, and I just probably won't go much over 1,000 horsepower because I can't really use much more than that on the street anyway. And then when I go to the racetrack or half mile or any of that stuff, I'll put Ignite 114 in it. Or like I said, C85 is great fuel too. So, you know, and then the other advantage of it is not just safety factor, it will make more power. I have not tested back-to-back with C85, but I suspect the same results or similar results to Ignite. On Ignite, I took a 1,000 real horsepower Whipple car. We drained the E85, put pump E85 and put Ignite in it, let it run for a little bit, cycle it out, didn't touch the tune. Okay, so same timing curve, same air-fuel ratio, everything, and it picked up like 35 to 40 horsepower. And this is, you know, at the wheel with changing nothing, you know, and it's probably about a 3 to 5% gain on average, and that's without really adjusting the tune. Theoretically, the car may tolerate more timing and all that, and I'm not really doing that. I mean, on a car that, you know, if the customer tells me, like, let's set a record or blow it up, well, I definitely want Ignite in it at that point, and, you know, we may turn it up pretty good, and we're good to go. But in general, I don't really do that. I leave the tune similar to what it would be on pump E85, except just gain the extra benefits of the of what's in that other 15% of the fuel. Anyway, I hope that answers a little bit. I'm rambling on a little bit there, sorry, but I'm at work, so it's time to get to work and send out some tunes.